Hey, back again for another day of discussion, chat, conversation, drama, conflict, and who knows what else. Chaos. You can never say. I never know what I'm going to get when I show up and turn the camera on. But welcome, welcome. Today is just going to be an open panel discussion. Let me check the news real quick. Bex, hello to you. And then I will, let's see. It looks like RFK is going to get confirmed. There was a shooting in Sweden. 10 people killed. They said it's their worst mass shooting in Swedish history. Trump and Netanyahu are going to meet. He's considering dismantling the Department of Education. Uh, Typical Trump stuff. You too. Good to see you. So this is what has me wondering lately. Is there's a lot of people, and I saw this the first 4 years of Trump. There's a lot of people that are, I would even call it fear. I would call it outright panic. Um, and I don't know why. I'm trying to figure out what are they looking at, and what story are they telling themselves, and what are they not looking at that's generating this intense emotional response to whatever they're seeing on social media, because it's coming from social media. And before the modern age, it would be coming from the news or the newspaper or talk radio. So I don't think it's a new phenomena that we're looking at. I'm just trying to understand it better. Uh, it kind of started. I'm part of a lot of online groups, and one of them, they created a second group because they were scared. I don't know what they're scared of. They're scared to post in the other group, the first group. They're scared to have political discussions. So they have this second group to have political discussions in case, I don't know what, like, I'm trying to understand the fear. But that's just one example of, it's kind of, the world's on fire. People think the world is on fire, and there's a coup. Democracy's being dismantled. I don't know what they think is taken over in its place. So I don't know what they're looking at specifically, because when I pull up my Google News and I read the headlines, I don't see anything that sends me into a panic. So either we're looking at the same articles and focusing on different facts, or they're looking at completely different sources than I am. And I'm looking at pretty mainstream sources. Whatever shows up on the Google page and Twitter, mostly, sometimes Facebook. And then occasionally people will post articles in Discord that I'll take a look at. But they're mostly from pretty like available sources. So I'm not getting my stuff from Alex Jones or any kind of fringe media. So I don't know if these people are, but like, they could be getting it from MSNBC and CNN and still find reasons to panic. So I don't know if the source is the issue, but whatever they're looking at, it's not the same thing I'm looking at. And if it is, they're having a completely different emotional reaction to it than I am. So that's the first thing I'm trying to understand. The second thing I'm trying to understand is the last 4 years of Trump and all the administrations before him. We have a system of checks and balances that's set up pretty sturdily and pretty intricately to guard against this kind of autocratic takeover that they have going in their head. And I watched it work the first 4 years of Trump because I had a few worries then too. And I'm like, okay, our system to care. We've had the Supreme Court recently already make rulings against Trump. We had Congress already go against Trump on some issues. So we seem to have three independent branches of government. Well, yeah, we do. We have Congress, the Supreme Court, and the executive branch, and it all seems to be working, at least from what I'm looking at. So, if are they seeing something I'm not seeing, or are they failing to overlook that our system has is still works? Like, what are you scared about? The brakes still work on your car. Your car is not out of control. Tap the brakes; they still work. Look out your window; it's not storming. So you can use basic intellectual functions, reason, observation, to mitigate the fear that you're feeling. So are they why are they locked into a doom spiral or a fear loop? And why isn't their intellect overcoming that? I guess is my main that's my main questions. I don't know who they is right here at all. See, this is a good example of this is the kind of stuff I'm seeing. Very vague posts that are mostly fear and panic driven, but not a lot of specifics. Which tells me I'm dealing with narrative. I'm dealing with ghost stories. These are ghost stories. The government is a very complex system with a lot of moving parts. It's not a single entity. So just saying the government doesn't give me the information I need to understand what you're looking at. All the rich politicians, like the one, they're all in a room together, all coordinating and conspiring against the rest of us. They're not individual autonomous beings with their own interest and agenda and very diverse, just like all of us. I see narrative collapse. I see people taking very complex, nuanced issue experience and trying to collapse it into a very reductive, simplistic narrative to try to make sense of that experience. And I guarantee, as shown throughout human history since the beginning of philosophy and even beyond, even before, experience is much richer and complex than any one model or narrative that attempts to capture and explain that experience. So there a narrative is being created that has in their head a story is being told, a myth is being formed, and people are having a very fear-based reaction to that narrative. Well, I'm at Looney. Good thing I have you here to tell me. Like, why dance around the issue? Just give me the meat. Give me the beef. Where is it? Because right now you're being very vague. So if you have concrete details you could fill in with, this is the time to do it. Or just come up on panel and explain it. Because I pull up my social media and I see one thing and I have one set of reactions, and other people, many, many other people, are pulling up either a different social media or the same social media I'm pulling up and having a completely different reaction. Or they're seeing something I'm not seeing. Okay, you haven't named a single fact yet. So if you want to continue this line of discussion, then throw some facts in there. Well, social media is where do you get your truth from? Do you go, are you like on the ground? Are you at the FBI building or in Washington at the Capitol talking to Congress directly? Where do you get your information from if it's not media? Whether social, legacy, there's television, there's newspaper, there's radio, there's magazines, there's social media. Effigy, what trying to you? I don't know what that means. That's a phrase. Trying to usurp Congress power of the purse with that executive. See, these are Buzz phrases. They're not giving me information. Is there a headline? Is there an article? Is there a link behind it where I could get more detail on what turning Guantanamo into a concentration camp means? That seems dramatic. That seems very dramatic. It seems like people are reading, getting snippets of information, and in their mind it's turning it to, oh my god, they're turning Guantanamo into a concentration camp. And I want to follow the process from the evidence they're looking at to that narrative. I'm trying to trace it. Okay, can I Google, if you don't have a link, can I Google? Do you have something I can Google? Because an executive order is a primary source. That's something I can read and make sense of and see what this narrative is based on. Luna, you haven't told us what you're looking at. You're just throwing out vague. You said social media is not the place to find information. Oh my God, you people are so blind. But you haven't given us one fucking thing to support what you're saying. You haven't told us where to find the real information. All you're doing is sitting here and throwing out cant and rhetoric. You said the government is they. That gives me no information. There's no content in that phrase. You said something about wasting money. You've given no details. You said something about social media not being where to look for the truth, but you haven't told us where to look for the truth, even though I've asked 3 or 4 times. And then you're calling us all blind because we don't see this mystical truth that you somehow have access to, but are not telling us where to find. So this is just this is not even, I don't even want to call it circular argument because it's not even argument. It's just circular chatting. Is it I saw it on YouTube, or I saw a meme, and then because people can't critically filter information, they just, whatever they see on YouTube becomes their reality, or whatever the meme says becomes their reality, even though we did a whole episode on memes and how open to interpretation they are. This is I don't know why I started this because I have a feeling this is a rabbit hole that I'm gonna really depress myself going down when I kind of get a window into how people's minds work. But like I don't enjoy the emotion of fear. That's not a pleasant emotion to me. So if I'm in the grip of fear, I go out of my way to like find a reason not to be scared as quickly as I can. So I don't have to walk around with irrational fear just permeating my psyche and infusing my day and making me miserable. So if there's any way I can like dispel the fear, I actively seek it out. Oh, okay. Effigy's gonna explain it to us. Do you have the
Hey,
article? Can you put it in the
hey Jeff, how you
background?
doing?
Hey,
Um, I mean, I'm just getting a list of his executive orders. I could find you one. I think there's a Guardian article that had from the first few days that kind of had a breakdown of them all.
I want the one that has people so scared, or the top 2 or 3 that have them so scared. Because some of what they're reacting to is not even executive orders. It's stuff Elon is doing. It's
Well, I mean, it's kind of worrying, right? Like once you read about the treasury systems and the payment systems and all the clearances you need to actually access that, and he's one of the first people ever outside of Treasury to have access to that. And then we've heard that he's using basically 25-year-old interns to do all this
what
stuff, and
we've
that they're
heard
writing
sounds like
code
gossip.
into the.
And you said once you read, so what are you reading? What source are you reading that's authoritative that we could all read and
I
learn the
mean,
same
I
thing?
just read his executive orders as far as those are
But you
concerned,
said
but
once you start reading about the Treasury and how it works.
I mean, the Treasury's just from the news because that's where the sourcing has come from. That's where you're going to get all this.
Yeah,
Is
but I
that
think the sources are important. Because I'm trying to look for either primary sources or authoritative sources that I can rely on more or less.
well? I think the executive orders are a bigger source of fear than that. Elon's a whole different thing.
Okay,
That's a
so
whole
we can
different.
put the
That's
Elon thing aside for now. And
But yeah, that's just a matter of giving a dude power who was never elected, basically,
ooh,
to do a
creation of
bunch
a
of stuff.
sovereign wealth fund, just like in Norway. That sounds like a good thing. The, okay, I'm seeing something about tariffs. which he's already backed off of on Canada and Mexico. The creation of a sovereign wealth fund doesn't sound that bad. Migrant detention center at Guantanamo
So that's
Bay.
not a full list. That's just from the first like day or two.
Gender affirming care. Reshaping the military. An American Iron Dome. Again, that also sounds like a good thing. Review of disaster agency FEMA sounds good.
The Iron
Declassifying the
Dome one is
MLK and
actually.
JFK. People have been asking for this for decades.
Oh, sure. Yeah, that one's not too bad. The American Iron Dome one is actually a bigger can of worms than it sounds like. It's not just like a ground-based missile defense. It's actually basically saying we want to put weapons in space, which is a whole new thing. Because once you do that, everyone starts doing that, and then you start having people
Didn't
shoot down
Reagan
each
have
other's
Star
satellites and crap.
Wars?
Yeah. Star Wars is kind of a good comparison to this because what Star Wars ended up being was basically just a buzzword that allowed him to funnel money into the Defense Department because there was no actual program like that. I mean, there's always going to be missile defense programs, but this actually sounds a whole lot like Star Wars actually because that's exactly what they were talking about back then was space-based missile defense.
Dobes, I
Um,
thought about I was gonna do an episode today on ethnicity, on that boundary concept. I found the book that I got it from, but I was saving it for you, and because you said you were gonna be here today, I said okay, I'll just save it for a day when Dobes is here.
uh,
What's the scariest order on this list?
let's see. Guantanamo Bay is a scary one to me, just for its
Okay,
implications.
I see what
I'm
that
not
says
sure if
on
that was
there.
on this list because, like I said, those are only from the first like day or two. I'm trying to find a. I mean, you can just go to
So
White
it's a
House's
place
website.
to keep the migrants. We've had those before, detention centers.
Yeah, but what is Guantanamo Bay infamous for? It's infamous for being outside of the United States, which means that our laws don't apply to people, which is the
And so
exact
you're
reason it
you're
exists
making
there.
some inferences from that.
Sure, exactly. It's the literal reason it exists to be outside of U.S. law. Also, let's just take into account the actual numbers here. At its height, and the most prisoners it's ever held was 800 prisoners. The largest state penitentiary in the entire United States is here in Louisiana. It holds 6,300. So what you're talking about, housing 30,000 illegal people, is
But
something that is not
what
done
the emotion
anywhere
is
right now.
reacting to is a scenario you're imagining based on inference. He's not nothing actually happened in real life that people are.
Jeff, that's what he said. That's what the executive order says is
That's
to
I'm trying to
get
find
it
the
ready
order.
to house 30,000
Right, that does
people.
housing immigrants doesn't sound like a scary thing. There's some stuff that your brain is adding into that, like it's
Yeah,
outside of
because
U.S.
you're having
law. Oh
then
my God, what
why are
horrible
we not
things are they
housing them
planning
in
to
the
do? I'm
country?
sure that's not in the order, so I'm going to try to pull up the actual order.
Yeah, but all of this is not without precedent. We just went through a 20-year period where we
But it's
were
also
housing
not
people there.
it's not fact. It's not actually happening now. It's the imagination
So the
that's
things that
drawing on
have happened in
precedent
Guantanamo Bay are
to
not fact.
formulate a scenario.
So everything that's happened in the past 20 years after the war on terror with Guantanamo Bay is not fact.
Is it happening now? Are you reacting to something that happened 20 years ago, or is he doing something right now in actuality, not in your imagination, but in actuality that would be a cause for fear? Or is this you're reading an executive order and then you're imagining what it could lead to? What I'm trying to do is separate people that are reacting to something that their imagination is generating versus something that's actually occurring in reality, which I call fact. Fact and fiction. Your imagination is fictive. It create. You know this because you're in the arts. Are you reacting to art that your brain is creating? Or are you reacting to something factual that's happening right now, not 20 years ago, right now in reality as a result of this executive order?
Well, I mean, people are, as of today, it was reported people are starting to be sent there. So this is not like a future thing. This
Okay,
is
but is
happening now.
anything happening to them that yet that would be
Do we
horrifying?
do I have to wait until like there's like
Well,
something
well, to
horrific
be
before I
reacting to
say there's
fact,
something
yes, you
could
do. Because
possibly happen?
until that thing happens, it's your imagination of what might happen when they get there. So you're reacting to a possibility that might happen.
or I'm reacting to the potentiality of it. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, all right. At least we're on the same page. That it's you're reacting to a potential future scenario.
No, if we were already to the point where this was already happening and there were horrible things happening out there, we'd be much further along down the line, I think.
Okay, and so some of this stuff that's in your mind might not even happen.
I mean, a lot of it might not happen. That's what the uproar is about, right? Like he was going to tariff Canada and Mexico, and then the stock market dropped, and Canada and Mexico basically said we're gonna punch you in the dick. I mean, so he can be backed off things as long as the uproar is big enough. So I think it's important
So
that we
some of the
take into
fear
consideration the
might
things
be
that can happen.
some of the
Yeah,
fear might be unnecessary,
the
or
fear it creates a reaction, and the reaction might be the thing that stops the bad thing from happening sometimes. Right? If there is something bad that could happen and there's a big enough reaction and they don't do it, like that could be the thing that helps.
I'm still trying
Um,
to find this order. Why is it so hard to
but
find?
I'd also like to say, as far as the Guantanamo Bay thing, the amount of money it cost to house prisoners in Guantanamo Bay, it was ridiculous, was obscene, compared to how much it would cost to house any large detention center in the United States. So there's all kinds of things wrong with that one that just kind of do not pass the smell test in my mind. And like I said, when we in the United States are basically experts at putting people in prison, why would you need to put them in the one place that all Americans know was a detention center so that you'd be outside of US law? It just
Why does
it,
the order say? Does the order say why? It would be so
I think the
helpful
order
if
just
the
implies that
Guardian.
their criminality is so bad that they have to be placed in places where terrorists are held, which is in a way kind of
Well,
crazy
that's
itself.
just you're just sensationalizing it. They're housing them in
Well, no,
Guantanamo
I'm
Bay.
if I'm remembering the language correctly, I believe the language in the executive order is basically saying that these illegal immigrants that we catch are so bad they have to be sent to this place.
Well, that's what I'm looking for. I might have found the order. Is it protecting the American people against invasion?
Yeah, I think that might be it.
Does it specifically say Guantanamo Bay?
Yeah.
Okay, then this is not the one because I can't find Guantanamo in it. Um, it would be useful if these media outlets would put the links to the articles in their stories. Another executive order. No, this is a different one. Oh, I'm still searching.
Yeah, there's so many of them. That's the other point. Man, when they talk crap about anyone doing executive orders, it's really just like nuts because then Trump gets in and he basically tries to rule through executive orders, which a lot of these are going to get slapped down. One of the ones I brought up in the chat also was the trying to impound money from Congress. This one's egregious. This one was so egregious that a federal judge basically laughed at it and slapped it down. Like this is, he said it. I think his quote was, "This is the most blatantly unconstitutional thing I've ever seen."
So wouldn't that make people less scared if our system of checks and balances is working that way?
Well, sure, but you know, they're not all federal judges are the same, right? We've gotten to this point where people are
So is
appointing
this guy the
judges on either
exception, or,
side,
or like are
and
they thinking that oh
after we
this
just
is
got a
that
Supreme
one
Court
judge, but all
case.
the others are not going to stand up to Trump, but we have this one judge, but he's the exception. Like to me, the fact that
Well, no, no,
even this
it's
judge did it would be encouraging, not
sure,
discouraging.
absolutely. Well, but it's kind of a cold comfort, right? When we just had a Supreme Court case that basically said the president has immunity for all official acts.
Yeah, but the Supreme
So
Court also ruled against Trump on some stuff too. So
sure, sometimes, yeah.
like they seem independent.
Here's hoping.
Well, I mean, I don't even have to hope. I could look at the ruling, and they did not rule for Trump. So to me, that would indicate they're not under his control. Like, so you could like if that's the narrative people have that the Supreme Court is at Trump's bidding, they can dispel that because they can see this ruling that did not do what Trump
I,
wanted
I,
it to do.
I never said they were at their bidding. Like if there's anyone at anyone's bidding, it's none of the people in power are the ones at the bidding, right? It's all the people with the money who are the ones behind the scenes, right? Like the Peter Thiels and the Elon Musks, the ones who are really bankrolling things like that. If anyone was like quote unquote conspiracy level in control,
Bankrolling what?
all of the conservative think tanks, Heritage Foundation, like all those people, that kind of stuff. All the
Well,
people that
those
came
are
up
all
with Project
legal.
2025. Yeah,
It's
sure.
okay. And people can fund them, so there's nothing sinister there. Rich people funding think tanks. Is that what they're scared of? They're just not prepared for life in America then, because that's something that happens here. That's within the law.
No, I wasn't answering the
People can
question. What
fund
is it
think
anyone scared
tanks.
of?
Because it seems to me, like just from a mental health perspective, that people are finding reasons to be scared and feeding their fear instead of taking steps to mitigate the fear. Like so, there's something that in people that want to be scared. They get
Do
either
you
group
do you
cohesion
believe
or
there's nothing
belonging
to be
through it.
afraid of for some of these people
I don't think there's anything to be this level of afraid of that I'm seeing in my groups.
in your groups? So you don't think there's anything to worry about, like with like recent trends or anything like that? So like,
I can there's nothing I've seen yet that I'm personally worried about that has me staying awake at night.
okay,
And I'm still looking for that Guantanamo order. I see articles saying that he's starting to send migrants there, but none of them are tracing it to a specific executive order. Now, there was one on illegal immigration, but it didn't mention Guantanamo. So it's to me, it's like Guantanamo has these associations with it from the past. So the fact that he's sending migrants there, people are
well, it's not just associations,
carrying
right?
that
It's
over to the present day group of migrants and thinking that horrible things are going to happen to them as well because of Guantanamo's reputation. But there's no basis for thinking that because none of that's happened yet.
it's
That just
it's
seems
not
like
a
fear.
but that's disingenuous. It's not a reputation. It's a legal reality. Guantanamo exists
But
where it exists so that it's not in the continental United States, so that you do not, the prisoners inside of it no longer have constitutional protections. That's why a prison outside
well,
of
these
U.S.,
are
a
illegal. These
flag
are not
site
even
on
citizens
non-U.S. soil.
anyway, right? He's sending the non-legal ones there, the ones that
Right,
don't.
but we've traditionally held everybody in the U.S.
That doesn't mean we have to continue to do that.
So at exorbitant cost, which is going to be to
I,
transport. No,
the
no,
the
no. That's not
cost
even a
thing
question,
is
my
so
man.
far is the
Like,
biggest like the most realistic objection. Like, why are we doing something so expensive if there's a cheaper way to do it?
why are we doing it at all? Like, it makes no sense to me. Like, this place was built, or at least over the
Well,
last 20
that's what
years,
I'm
was
trying
there
to
to
find
just
out. If
hold
this
terrorists.
order says why we're doing it or not. Like, if I'm trying to find something factual from the White House, the administration, somebody that says this is why we are making the decision to send them to this expensive place instead of a least expensive place. So far, I'm just hearing stories and narratives and suppositions of what might happen or why they might be doing it. You think he's planning something nefarious, so he's looking for some place outside of like constitutional protection, so he could do something evil to these people?
No, I think he's
Is
trying to
that the
further the
fear?
narrative that illegal immigrants in the United States are so bad that their criminality
So
is
a lot of
equal
them
to that
are.
of
A lot
terrorists.
of them are. A lot
Some
of them
of them
come from the
are.
gangs and the
Some
cartels.
of them do. Like, it's a fallacy of composition to say that just because you came to the country without documentation that you are thereby equated with terrorists.
I'm not saying that. I don't think he's made that broad of a claim either.
That's what this is doing. That's what it is doing to put them in the place where you would put terrorists.
No, that's you're making that connection. Just because that terrorists were housed there in the past doesn't mean that only terrorists can ever be housed there. And if somebody is housed there, that automatically means they're a terrorist. Your mind is making that connection. And I'm trying to separate that kind of thinking from realistic thinking. And it's very frustrating. Because just because someone is sent to Guantanamo, I would not automatically assume they're a terrorist just because that's what it was used for in the past. That's not logical thinking. That's like emotion based thinking.
No, not at all. It's not at
Yes, it
all. It's
is. It
completely
is.
logical thinking to think that if someone told you that they were sent to prison and then they said they were sent to Guantanamo Bay, you would not think that they got a parking ticket. You would not think that they robbed a bank. You would think that they did something so horrifically bad that they had to get
No,
sent
I
to
would
a
look
nuclear
at what they
blast
actually are
school.
being sent there. I wouldn't bother to form like pointless conclusions, and I would just find out in reality why they were sent there. And it sounds like they're being sent there for detention until they can get them back to wherever they're sending them, their country of origin, I guess. The purpose for sending them. Well, that's what he's saying, but where is that in print? That's what I'm trying to find. Is that in some kind of official communication from the White House, either executive order, or is that just what people are saying to themselves? Like
I'm sure
why
right.
would they want, what is it about the Constitution they're trying to bypass? And have they explicitly said that, or are people just suspicious and mistrustful? I would like to hear their reason for why they're using Guantanamo and then go from there, but I can't even find that. Let me try to Google that specifically. Why is Trump sending migrants to Guantanamo?
This is why I
Trump
don't Google
says he
anymore.
will
It's
send
insane.
some migrants to Guantanamo. NPR, let's see what they say. He plans to use a migrant holding facility to house up to 30,000 criminal migrants. So maybe are these some that were specifically charged with crimes? Oh, there's a White House memo. Hang on. Expanding Migrant Operations Center at Naval Station Guantanamo. Okay, to full capacity. Here we go. I found the. It's not an order, but it's a memo. I'll post the link.
I just read an article where he was saying it was an executive order. That's
Well, he might have he might have called it that, but it's a memorandum. It's just a few paragraphs actually. It's I hereby direct the Secretary of Defense and Homeland Security to take all appropriate actions to expand the Migrant Operations Center. So just the word expansion tells me whatever its current purpose is, they're expanding that. So it's not going to be all terrorism. To full capacity to provide additional detention space for high priority criminal aliens unlawfully present in the United States. So it seems like it's a very specific subset of migrants.
so. Well, first of all, expand just means larger number, right? Because
And to
we
address
know what Guantanamo Bay's capacity has only ever been at max 800 people.
well, they're expanding that then. They're expanding the
Obviously, if he
capacity.
wants to hold 30,000, which is going to be quite an insane, expensive expansion, considering the largest prison in the United States holds like 6,300.
Well, let me keep reading. And to address attendant immigration enforcement needs identified by the Department of Defense. The memorandum is issued in order to halt the border invasion, dismantle criminal cartels, and restore national sovereignty. None of that sounds scary to me. It sounds good. It sounds like stuff that needs to be happening. It's not intended to and does not create any right or benefit, substantive or procedural, enforceable at law or in equity by any party against the United States, its departments, agencies, or entities. That's legalese. So that's really all it says, is he's directing them to expand the capacity to hold these high priority criminal aliens. So I'm assuming, and the memorandum doesn't say, but there's some way to determine that they are using to determine who's in that group and who's not. Either they were charged, they were arrested, they're currently being held in prison. They're not just randomly placing people in that category. There's criteria for who gets.
You're assuming that?
Yeah, I'm assuming that. You think they're creating this category called high profile criminal activity and then just putting random innocent people in it?
I don't know what they're doing at that point. At
Right.
this
So
point,
if you
that's
don't
just
know, why
words.
get? Like, why not try to find out? That
Because
would be the educated.
because his language throughout the years has been nothing but the escalation
But
of the
instead of going by his
criminality
language,
of
why
these
don't you
people.
try to find out the
Why wouldn't I
reality
go by his
behind it?
language? Well, because the reality is not there yet. Because he's
So
basically
then why
stopping
the
us from
if the
finding out
reality's not
information about
there?
stuff.
What are
Also, it's
people
Guantanamo
reacting to?
Bay. How can we walk up to Guantanamo Bay with journalists and try to find out what's going on? We can't. That's another point. Like, how are we supposed to know, even
Right, so
if
you're
they're
left to
being
your imagination
screwed?
to create pictures of what's going on, and that's what people are reacting to. Exactly what I said they're reacting to. Imaginary scenarios. Because all I got out of this order was that he's expanding the capacity to hold these high profile criminal activity migrants. Criminal aliens, he calls them. Unlawfully, they're not even present lawfully in the first place. So if this is the
But
scariest order, it's not generating the
nothing
fear in
nothing
me
has
that it
given
seems to
me.
be in
Yeah,
other
but
people.
you kind of give excuses though, Jeff, in a way.
No, I'm just
There's
going. I'm
no.
going by what I'm seeing in front of my face, and
I,
you're adding stuff in with your imagination, and then you call that me giving excuses, and I call that you not sticking to the facts.
well, when they don't give any reasons as to why we need to turn a terrorist black site prison into a detention camp,
He just
when they
said
give
he
no.
gave reasons.
No, there is no
It's
justification.
detention space for
We've been
high
holding
priority
criminals in
criminal
this country
aliens
for years, for
unlawfully
decades,
present
for
in
a
the United
century.
States. They need a place to put these people.
How in the world do we need a place to put them? Texas, the governor of Texas just eminent domain gave an insane amount of acreage near the border to build these camps. We know we can do it in the United States. We do it all the time. We
So
build
you're
enormous
saying
prisons.
this memorandum did not give us the answer to why Guantanamo specifically?
Why? Yeah. Why do we need
Okay.
to put them in Guantanamo?
Well, let's see if
That's
we can
that's my
find that
big
because
question.
that is what I googled. Why is he sending them to Guantanamo? All you need to know about Guantanamo Bay. He signed the Laken Riley Act, and there was a signing ceremony, and he spoke during it. So some of that came from his speech while he was signing this act. And then he signed the presidential memorandum after that. So this speech at the act signing came first. Maybe I could find the speech. Or you know what? Maybe we could just watch it. Trump speech. That would be the best thing to do. We could just
Yeah.
hear it right out of his mouth.
Luna Song and chat, yeah, they're here illegal, but does that mean you have to get put in a terrorist black site because you're here illegally? Why can't you just get
You're
put in a regular
calling it
prison?
a terrorist black site. It's a
That's what it
detention
is. It's what it's been
facility.
forever.
It's a building that people. It's just be honest about what it is.
I am being 1000% honest about what it is.
No, you're going by what it was used for. Like one of the purposes it was used for in the past, and you're thinking that that's what it currently is with these people, and that's
You don't think there
disingenuous
aren't
on your
terrorists
part.
held in Guantanamo Bay right now? You don't think that? There are.
What does that have to do with this group that he's sending there now? Like, why are you calling them terrorists? Trump's not even calling them terrorists. You think Trump, as hyperbolical as he is, if that was the plan, he would be calling them terrorists. He's calling them
He
high-profile criminal
Jeff,
aliens. Why
he
are you
also signed an
calling them
executive
terrorists?
order. He signed an executive order naming the cartels as terrorists. Then you
Okay, are
link
these
that
the
back to
cartel
the
people? Are
then
these
you link
specific
that
people? Maybe
back
they are.
through
Maybe
his
these are the
rhetoric.
people from the
You
cartels.
link that back through his rhetoric to calling
You're
all
being
illegals.
disingenuous.
No, I'm
You're
not.
you're
I'm
saying
I'm using
because
the
they're
words
going
he's
to
using.
Guantanamo that they're terrorists. And Trump himself didn't even
No,
say that, nor did his memorandum. I found the speech, but it's half an hour long. I'll post the link. Maybe I can get a transcript. Hey, Shift.
he put first. What does that even mean, Luna Song? What does that even mean to be put first? Like we've got to lock people up in camps, to be put first.
It's a detention facility. That's what it's supposed to. It detains people. All right, I'm gonna search the transcript and see if I can find anything about Guantanamo.
All
Okay,
right. So
let's see.
what about the executive order that released all the Jan 6 people?
We have wait. Let's do one at a time. We have
Okay, sorry.
30,000 beds to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back. So we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, and that's a tough place to get out of. All right, let's continue. Oh, that's the only here. I'll play this little part. This is the only mention of Guantanamo in the whole speech.
Yes, thank you, Dolbez. You get it.
Oh, hey, Lou. Oh, thank you, Lou. Let's see. But what does Poland do? What does that have to do with this particular situation in front of? That's my whole point.
It was an
People are
analogy.
bringing in associations that have nothing to do with what's going on, or at least there's no evidence that those associations have anything to do with what's going on in front of us now. They're bringing them anyway. They're making inferences, and my biggest problem with it is they're calling it logic. It's not. It's inferential. Here, let's watch his Guantanamo part.
Like it too. They're going to like it. They're going to take it back and they're going to like it. Today, I'm also signing an executive order to instruct the Departments of Defense and Homeland Security to begin preparing the 30,000 person migrant facility at Guantanamo Bay. Most people don't even know about it. We have 30,000 beds in Guantanamo to detain the worst criminal illegal aliens threatening the American people. Some of them are so bad we don't even trust the countries to hold them because we don't want them coming back, so we're going to send them out to Guantanamo. This will double our capacity immediately, right? And tough. That's a tough place to get out of. Today's signings bring us one step closer to eradicating the scourge of migrant crime in our communities once and for all. And it was just it's just an unforced error that we even have to be doing this. Now we need Congress to provide full funding for the complete and total restoration of our sovereign borders, as well as financial support
So
to
that's all.
remove
That's the only
record numbers
thing
of
he said
illegal
about Guantanamo
aliens.
in the
And
whole
these are
speech.
illegal alien killers, criminals at levels that nobody's ever seen before. And you would have known that, and you were there when I said it. I said everybody that's bad is going to be thrown. If you look at Venezuela, Venezuela's crime is down 77% because they've taken their gang members, their prisoners, their drug dealers, their drug lords. They've shipped them all into the United States. Many other countries, their crime is way down, and our crime is not doing well.
I wonder if
But
there's
we're
a
going to.
fact check on this speech. There probably is. Um,
No, he's wrong on that.
okay, I
My
didn't.
crime rate has been down for 30 straight years.
If this speech and the memorandum are the two things about this issue, don't see anything in it that's provoking fear in me. It sounds like it's a good thing. They sound like really bad people. I don't have a lot of sympathy for them in the first place. I'm not that concerned about them going to Guantanamo. I didn't hear anything in there that scares me or has me
So
worried.
so what's different now than the past however many decades of people coming across? Like, did they just upgrade themselves to be extra scary evil people? Like this idea that they're super special murdering
He
people
said
that
they're
we now
criminals. They're high. What did he call them? High priority criminal aliens.
we've got a ton of
He
criminals
said
in
some
this
of them are
country. We have
killers.
some of the most large
I don't
prisons
know
in
who
this
these people are. I'm assuming they have criminal records that are pretty severe. Who do you think they are? Like random school children that he just snatched off the street that have done
Oh
nothing?
no, maybe
Do
they
you
are
do you
criminals. Maybe
think
some
that
of them
they
are,
may
but
have
but
criminal records at
but
least?
someone who commits the same kind of crime that any other person can in the
Like
country just
what?
because they're not here.
Do you think they're people that just stole a loaf of bread at the grocery store, or do you think they're
Let
people
me
that probably killed, robbed, or raped somebody?
if someone killed someone else, if someone unalived them, uh, does that mean that we have to build a special prison off of U.S. soil specifically to house them because they're so scary? Like, listen to his language. He just said they're so bad we can't even bring them back to their country of origin.
He
That
said
like
he doesn't trust
he's
the country of
elevating them to
origins
the
to
level
keep
of
them
terrorists.
in. It's the country of origins he doesn't trust, not because they're so scary we can't bring them back because
Why
they're
doesn't he
too
trust our
scary to
prisons
be in their
then?
country. He doesn't trust that the country is going to detain them,
So
that they're
we
not going
should
to end
house
up back
them
here.
out of country for a crazy amount indefinitely, since we're never going to give them back to their country of
Where
origin.
did
So
he
we're just
say? I didn't see that anywhere. That this never going to
he
give them back
literally
part.
said that they are too bad to house in their countries of origin. So what we're just going to house them indefinitely.
Well, I don't know. He didn't say that though. So that's
He
something you're adding
said
in.
his literal words were they are too dangerous to send back to their
Did you
countries of
hear him
origin.
say we're housing them there indefinitely? Did you hear
If
him
you
say
can't
that?
send them back to where they go and you're not going to hold them here, what are you doing, Jeff? Where are you going to release them?
Did he
You can't
say
just release
that?
them into
That's
the
your
ocean.
assumption. You're
No,
not
this is a
basing it.
no, no. This
That
is
is my point.
deductive
There was
reasoning.
nothing factual that said that, but you're making the assumption and then you're
No,
reacting as if he said
nope.
it when it
This
came
is
from
called
your
deductive,
brain, not
man.
his
Deductive
mouth.
reasoning. It's deductive reasoning. If you cannot hold them here and you cannot send them back to their country, what do you do with them? Where would you even
That's an
release them
assumption.
to?
It's not
No,
deductive
it's
reasoning.
deductive
It's an
reasoning.
opinion.
Where would you,
That's what
where,
you
no, follow
believe.
the logic,
That's
Jeff.
what you
Where can I release
believe
them?
is. I know I'm not wrong because I know lot. That's the whole
Where,
point. I know
where can
fucking
I release
logic.
them?
I know what a fact is. I know what an assumption is. And the
Obviously
smart
not
people that
deductive
I grew
logic.
up with used to know that too. But for some reason, the intellectuals are captured by they're captured by their feels, and they're doing all of this motivated, emotional reasoning and confirmation bias. And I'm
And
trying to get them
I'm
back on a
asking a really simple
logical,
question.
rational
And you, no,
track,
no,
and
no.
you
You
can
don't get to
see
claim
the
logic when you're
frustration.
running away from it right here. I'm asking a very simple question. You
What's your
arrest a
question?
person. You arrest a person. You cannot hold them on our country's soil, and you will not send them back to their country's soil. So if you think that it's not logical to assume that you will be holding them indefinitely, where can you
I
release them?
don't know. He didn't say, so I'm not going to make an assumption until I know what they plan to do with these people. You're convinced you know what they're going to do with these people, and I don't know what they're going to do,
Oh
and
no,
I would need
I
more
didn't say what they're going to
information.
do. I told you
So
what they
I'm
can't do.
intelligent enough to know when I don't know something, and when I require more information, instead of just running with some assumption that's not based on anything.
I didn't make the assumption. I'm just
You
making a
did
claim
make
what
the
they can't
you
know,
made
what
the
they can't
assumption that
do.
they're going to hold him indefinitely. You flat out said it.
If you're literally saying you're not going to release them to their country of origin, and you're saying you cannot hold them on the United States, like where can you release them
You
then?
know, let me
Into the
try to
ocean,
Google that. I don't know what he's going
into
to
a
do with them.
country
What
that
does
doesn't
Trump
want them, that they're not from? Like,
plan to do with? This is just sloppy thinking on your part, and I'm trying to help you think more intelligently, and you're fighting me every step of the way. What does Trump plan to do with the migrants at Guantanamo? And I personally don't care if he holds them indefinitely. They're criminals.
I do, considering we're paying for it, and the cost of a prisoner at Guantanamo is magnitudes higher than prisoners every other place.
Would you'd rather he hold them at a prison in Texas
I
that's
mean, if
cheaper?
we're yeah, I mean, if there's no prison more secure than the United States supermax prison, like what are we even talking
All
about?
right, let's see. Here's
Like
what to
we've
know.
held
This is from
terrorists
PBS.
for years in our prisons. Our prisons are insanely good. I mean, if they're that scary.
It says what else is known about the migrant operation center? Not much. So like there, we don't even have. There's not even a lot of facts that people know about it yet. So it's all assumption, speculation, and inference.
No, they weren't Luna Song. Just look up how much it cost to keep a prisoner in Guantanamo Bay versus how much it costs to keep a prisoner in the on the contiguous United States.
This
It's
article
it's
gave me very little
insanely
information
different
other
amounts
than
of
to
money.
say it doesn't know. But this is a good example of what I've been seeing on social media is there'll be some kind of headline or news story or lines from a speech or memorandum or executive order, and we don't know any additional information on it, and people's imaginations are going out of control and their emotions are following it. Hey, Chris. And as somebody who works with
Hey,
mental
what's up,
health
Chris?
and tries to keep people from going into crisis, that I look for things like that. I look for ways that they can use their minds and their intellect to kind of realistically assess threats and align their fears to reality so that they won't be so intent. And so this is what I'm approaching it from. And
So
when I see
what would
people
you
doing this on a
say?
mass scale like I am now,
Do you think like someone who's like say like trans doesn't have anything to fear right now?
what are they scared? I would love to talk to a trans person and find out what they're scared of,
I mean, I feel like a lot of them feel like they're being erased. Like
other
a lot
than
of the
joining the
protections.
military.
I mean, is that not a thing? Is that not important to some people?
Yeah, I don't. I think they should be allowed to serve.
So you agree that some of the things that they've come to have are being taken away?
That one thing. So what else are they scared of?
I mean, there was another exec. Pretty sure there was an executive order on that as well.
On what?
Uh, was it gender ideology, extremism, as they called it? Um,
What's the fear? He did the one
well,
on
well,
like those two
Biden.
genders.
Well, he took away because Biden had expanded uh, Title IX protections to include certain other groups, and I think he one of his executive orders undid that.
So what are they scared of? What's the fear? What's the scenario that they're worried is going to happen?
I mean, I think the ultimate fear would be basically being pushed out of society again, to
What
where
does
you're on the
that mean?
fringes again.
Like on a practical, realistic, what does that mean? People they're going to be locked in their houses. They're not going to be allowed to shop at grocery stores. What
You're
does
not going to have
being
access
shut
to the
out of
type of health
society
care
mean?
that you have been having. You're not going to stuff like that. Like trans people have a very specific type of health care that
I
they're looking
just
for,
saw one
right?
about minor health care. Like adults can still get their health care. So the one I saw was about minors having access to what they call gender affirming care.
So you don't think minors should have access to any kind of gender affirming care? Like that's a pretty wide ranging
Well, I'm not saying
group
I
of stuff.
100% agree with it. My personal position on it is that it should be between the kid, the family, and their doctor, and that each case, like it should be assessed on a case by case basis. But I also don't know why. Like they're not going to die without hormones or puberty blockers.
Sure.
Trans people throughout history have been surviving that stuff just fine. So I think this panic about there's going to be a wave of mass suicide, which we never saw at any other time of history, is a false belief. Because they didn't have my generation of trans kids didn't have any of that stuff, and there wasn't mass suicides of trans people. So I don't know why they think suddenly if they don't get this very specific type of medical care, there's going to be a wave of mass suicides. That's not grounded in anything that's
Yeah,
happened
I mean,
in the
there's also a
past.
little bit of a difference from a traditionally marginalized group making their way into being non-marginalized, and then a group that had success being non-marginalized and getting re-marginalized. Right? There's a little bit of a difference there, I would say, especially
But
in a in a
what are they scared? You said being shut out of society, but can you translate that to something concrete that I can understand? Like if I was a trans person, what would
I
I
mean,
have to
everything like
walk around being
down to little
scared is
things
going to
like.
happen to me? People are going to jump out of the bushes and
Well,
do
no,
what?
it's all the little things, right? Like not having, even down to like not having things like on your license that say what you want it to say as far as
But
your
why
gender
why would
identity.
that
Like
scare me? Why would that be a fear?
well, it's just
Oh my
because
God,
it.
I can't have the gender that I
All right,
identify
now
with on
you're
my
being
license. I'm
reductionist while I'm trying to
terrified.
explain to you.
I'm gonna crawl under my quilt
It's a
at night and stay in my
conglomeration of
bed and
things that
shiver and
paints a
shake.
society in a certain way, right? It shows that a group of people are actively targeting you for even the minutia of your life.
By not having something on your license is an
Why would
active
someone give
these
a
are
shit whether or
snowflakes.
not I put no,
These are
no?
highly fragile people. Their issues are if you can sit any one of them down in front of me and I
I
can
give you
work
an
on their mental
example and you
health
try to use
issues
it as
and
like the
help them
entire
not be
thing.
scared, not be afraid, and not draw conclusions about the rest of society based on what they can or cannot have on their license. I can at least help with that part. And Luna, you're right. Nothing I saw applied to trans adults. So I don't know why trans adults are walking around scared of this. I think people are looking for problems. They're looking for things to be scared of, and they're looking for things to be distressed about because maybe their life is not as exciting. They have boring lives, and so this at least like satisfies hero complex in them or
Well, it's
something
Jeff. It
that
seems
like
like
they
every
get to
time you
live
ask
this
for an
Indiana
example, you just
Jones
immediately want
life
to jump on
from the
it and say
comfort of
like,
their
"Well, that doesn't
laptops.
matter," when it just doesn't matter to you. Because
I'm
that's all your
trying to
argument are. Your
understand
argument
what
is,
they're
I don't
scared
think
of,
that
and
is
the
it.
thing you've come up with so far is not being able to have the gender they want on their license. Like that's the scariest thing they're
I was
facing.
trying to explain something, but you
Well,
jump
why did you
on the
use that
first
example? If is there a more scary example
because
you're
I
going to
was
use?
trying to show how they come for even the minutia of your life. Like, why would the fuck would you even care what goes on someone's license? Someone cares enough to come and screw with that. Like, that's the thing I'm trying to paint is that when you have a group of people who are so focused, their
There's
anger on this
probably
one group of
reasons that
people,
they
they want
want
to
to
try and
keep.
erase them from society in every way they can. That's
That's
just the
I don't
smallest
know. I
example. I
don't.
chose a small
That's
example on purpose.
well. Why don't you choose a more obvious example? If there's a better example out there, why don't you choose a better example?
Well, I mean, the military one is the best example right now, as far as like direct things. Also,
What
they mandated
I don't know for sure,
transgender
but
women who are in federal custody into men's prisons. So, I
when I
mean, I'm sure
looked at,
that's not going to be good
I
for
don't
those
think men
people.
should be in women's prisons. When I looked at it, it looked like the existing trans people were going to be allowed to continue to serve, and it was just new trans people or
But do you think
recruitment or something.
so? If you don't think men should be in women's prison, that's one thing. But do you believe a transgender woman who has already gone
And
through some
I don't know
process
how
should
that
be put in a
applies to
men's prison?
normal everyday trans people walking around living their life. Why would the prison situation scare a non-criminal trans person that's just living their life?
I don't choose to stop giving people human rights just because they're in prison. So
That wasn't the conversation though. The conversation was you said how scared trans people were, and I was trying to find out what they're scared of, and then you switched it to a topic about human rights in prisons without really addressing the fear
no, I
of the
answered your
everyday,
question.
ordinary, non-criminal trans person. So if you want to talk about human rights, we can, but I didn't get my understanding of why an everyday adult trans person would be walking around petrified.
If you don't understand that after the last like 8 years, I'm not sure what to tell you at this point. So we can just move on from that one.
Well, I'll just need to find somebody that can explain it to
Well,
me
yeah, I
better than you
mean,
can,
if
because you're
no,
not
for
doing a good
sure, I
job.
agree. Well, no, I agree on that one for
And I
sure.
would
On this
love
one,
to talk to
I'm
an
not a
actual
trans
trans
person.
person.
Like if we could just summon Mel up right now and they could talk to you,
Who?
that'd be great. Uh, Mel Cosmic Fox, who's on a lot of debate panels.
I wonder if they would come on. I would love to.
Oh, Mel will definitely come on if they knew that this
Are
conversation
they
was
a
happening.
YouTuber? What's their name?
Uh, Mel goes by Cosmic Fox. I think that people call Mel Furby because her icon is a little Furby.
Cosmic Fox. Is it like a little fox icon?
It's a
Black
Furby.
and white fox.
No, it's literally a Furby, a red Furby.
Uh, okay, then I don't have the right channel.
I'm not sure if Mel has a channel.
Oh, okay. Or any other trans person. The one, I don't know, Jax. I can work with you and email me and help you not be afraid of the cotton balls you pull out of the pill bottles. Yeah, I've never heard of this Mel person. Dirty, do you know her? Do you know how to someone tell her to come on and tell me why trans people are scared. The only trans person that I know in the Panaverse is that Nev person. I don't care for her at all. Oh, Daniel, how did you get off of block? I did. You know what? I did an amnesty on New Year's Day, and I unblocked a bunch of people, and so maybe that's how. Maybe you were in the mix. So I'll let you stay as long as you keep yourself off of block. As a homo, my life has impacted none. It impacts me more as a white male than it does as a homo.
I mean, can't we just say
I
we
haven't
if
had to change a single thing about how I live my life. I haven't been walking around with fear or anxiety or any kind of negative emotion. So what you're saying there, at least as it applies to my life, is just not true.
can we say as far as the DEI thing that when that plane crashed the other day, that basically kind of gave away the game when he blamed DEI before we even knew who the pilots were, it was kind of
What was
like
the game? What game?
using it as a pejorative catch-all for anything that's a minority status.
How is that like? What? I don't understand the game. There's other people in on it.
Yeah, everyone who uses DEI as a pejorative catch-all to mean other
I
things.
don't. I don't use it to mean that.
A lot of people do.
Well, then, but like they're coordinating. It's some plan. You said game.
Yeah, it's a rhetorical game. The
Oh,
same way
rhetorical.
Republicans call Democrats the Democrat Party instead of Democratic Party. It's a
Okay.
rhetorical game.
Okay. Well, I guess some people do play those. I think I'd like to think I'm intelligent enough to know when they're doing it or not, and I can
I
sort that out
mean,
for
do you
myself.
not agree that it's strange to blame DEI before you even know the race or gender of the
Yeah,
pilots?
I would
Or
say the
that
same thing about that as I'm saying about you and all these other scaredy cats over at Guantanamo. That there's no reason, there's nothing factual to base that on. They're making the same assumption. They're making assumptions in the same way that you're making assumptions. So if they saw the
what's my
plane
assumption?
crash and the first thing
What's my
that they
assumption?
thought was that, oh, it was caused by DEI, I would say that that's intellectually lazy.
But that's what he did. He literally
Well, I
had a
don't, I don't,
statement.
I don't hold Trump to the same intellectual standards that I would hold somebody like you, though. Okay, well, Daniel, actually, I'm tempted to let you go a little longer. You have my curiosity up. I'm not worried about DEI. Trump got rid of all that. Like I haven't really, other than it's still in Washington State, but it hasn't impact. Although I did look at they sent me the policy manual for my new job, and they have a section on diversity, equity, and inclusion. But it's stuff like a lot of it is on sexual harassment, and then they have a section on other types of harassment, and it's like you can't make jokes are that like pejorative jokes about people's ethnicity, race, gender, and all that. And so it was one little tiny paragraph in the whole manual, and I said, "Oh, that one is the gray area. If you say one little thing about a race or a gender or something, sexual orientation was on there, it can be interpreted in a certain way and used against you." And so I said, okay, I'm just not going to make any kind of joke at work at all, and then that'll solve that problem. But that's the most of the DEI stuff that I saw in the manual that had the potential, I felt, to impact my own job. And I thought it was a little extreme, but if that's the only thing in the whole they didn't have any DEI training I needed to sit through or anything like that. They didn't talk about systemic racism. It was just like you can't make offensive jokes or jokes that could potentially offend one of these protected categories. Right, and I just got through saying, Daniel, if you want to rewind the stream since you didn't pay attention the first time, that I consider that unintelligent. But that I don't hold Trump, I don't look at Trump as an intellectual in the first place. So
Well,
if
hey,
Trump
at
is
least we
saying
agree there.
something stupid and ignorant, that's just Trump. But if somebody like Effigy is saying something stupid and ignorant, who I know is an intelligent person, that's a different. That I have more cognitive dissonance around that, and I would be more confused by that, and I would try to understand more why Effigy's doing it than I would with Donald Trump. Oh, Lou, you're doing DEI training? Do you want to come up and tell us about it? Wait, what? All right, I definitely want to hear about this. How many hours of it do you have to do? And what does it involve? Is it a classroom, like they send you to a classroom, or is it just an online video you have to watch and click through? Luna, that might be true. That might be right, but I know the past jobs I have when I was in the workplace, like way back when, none of that. They didn't tell you any of that stuff. Like nobody cared or nobody said anything about it. It's not legal to fire someone based on gender, ethnicity, and Put it this way: according to current civil rights law, it's not legal. It's not legal. And if there's something in those executive orders that are trying to change that, which I didn't see anything like that, I'm sure it's going to get thrown out by a judge. So I think that those classes will continue to be protected, and I don't think people are going to start getting legally fired based on gender, ethnicity, and what you're calling other assorted shit, assorted other shit. I think those laws are still going to hold. Well, what do I look for? What's the executive order? It says specifically it is now legal to fire people based on gender, ethnicity, and assorted other shit. I don't believe you. I call bullshit. I don't believe you.
Well, I
But
mean,
it
technically, it would be legal now for the protections that were unexpanded. So, like the stuff that's in the original Civil Rights Bill, those protections are probably still there. But the expansion of Title IX, what Biden did, is probably undone. So, you probably could fire someone for certain things, right? Like, I think being gay was one of the ones that was the part of the expansion.
I thought sexual orientation was a
I didn't
protected
think that was
class.
in the
I do
original one.
know that we still don't have employment right. I think our housing. There's some right, like we got marriage, but there were still a few little rights we didn't have, and I think housing, possibly employment. If someone can tell me the executive order, I'll look it up. Well, then why should I care what you believe? You're spouting all this stuff, and you can't back any of it up, and you're saying go to whitehouse.gov. So I'm trying to take you in good faith and do just that and figure out exactly what the hell you're talking about. And then you want to not care what I believe. This is not a good faith exchange. Executive order on civil rights with civil rights protections. Let's
Can
see.
we also say it's
Protects.
just kind of like more virtue signaling than anything if you're going to sign an executive order that you know the courts are going to slap down?
Okay, I went to whitehouse.gov. There's a fact sheet. You want to know what it says? President Donald J. Trump protects civil rights and merit based opportunity by ending illegal DEI. So it sounds like it's designed to protect the civil rights categories. I don't see anything about it being legal to fire based on gender or race. Yeah, I'd have to know more about what you're talking about or how you're interpreting it because I'm not seeing what you're saying. But if you hear stories of employers suddenly firing people because they're women or black or whatever, definitely let me know because it hasn't been happening for. I mean, put it this way: it's illegal. If it happens, it usually wins in court. So if you hear stories of that being reversed and employers suddenly firing people based on their race or gender, definitely let me know. I don't think it's going to happen.
It's called the Defending Women from Gender Ideology, Extremism, and Restoring Biological Truth to the Federal Government Executive Order.
Okay.
Here, I'll just post the link.
That's the one that talks about the civil rights. Executive Order 14168. All right, what? I don't see anything so far. Okay, let's see. Here's. Oh, this is about access to single sex spaces. Um, I don't see anything about it in it about employment yet.
Well, it's a redefining of terms, and if you redefine the terms, then certain protections are no longer going to apply to certain people because the term no longer includes them.
So you think women are going to start getting fired now? And what does that have to do with race? Yeah, I don't believe you. I don't believe you or Daniel that suddenly civil rights law no longer applies and employers can now fire people in those protected categories. That they can start firing women, they can start firing black people or brown people or whatever color people. I don't believe that. If that's your takeaway from this executive order, I think you have it wrong.
I mean, I didn't offer any conclusion. My conclusion is that those protections no longer apply to people.
I
So
think
any
they do.
abuses
I
that
think civil
could be
rights
happening.
protections still apply. I don't think he completely negated
Yeah,
civil
I thought
rights
that
law.
was the point of Biden expanding Title IX was so that it did apply to those people because it hadn't before. That's what I was assuming what happened during Biden's term.
But what Daniel is saying is that invalidated all the categories. Now you can fire them for race and sex and all the other stuff that were traditionally protected, even before Biden's expansion. So if
I
you're saying
disagree with
all it
that.
did is it rolled it back to the pre-Biden categories, that's different from what Daniel's saying.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
he's
I'm
saying
not
it,
saying
it
what Daniel's saying.
annihilated all of them. There are no more protections at all.
No, he can try to undo the Civil Rights Act, which I wouldn't put it past him, but he would fail. I would hope he would fail because
See,
it's
it
a
says it
law.
now gives them loopholes to invalidate all of the categories, and that I don't think is accurate.
That is a possibility. I don't know if it's happened
Right,
yet.
y'all are full of possibilities, but none of you seem interested in
I mean, don't
probabilities or what's realistic or likely to happen. Y'all are spinning out all these extreme scenarios that will probably never ever come to be.
I mean,
It's
we
fear
could kind
porn.
of
For
say
some
the
reason, y'all
same
get
thing in a
off on
way,
being
right?
scared.
You guys keep ceding ground and being like, no, no, it'll be fine. We'll just completely ignore the things he's done in the
I think
past.
it
So,
will be
like,
fine, and I even said if you see stories where it's not fine, let me know. I'm gonna
I
take an interest in
and
that.
like I've said, I genuinely hope you're right. I
I
hope
don't
I'm
have a
wrong.
reason to think it won't be fine. I'm not seeing the ghosts and shadows in this stuff that y'all are. And Lou is right. Cause if an employer wants to get rid of someone, they will find a way to get them out of there, regardless of what the. They just won't be from one of those categories. But when people decide they don't want you around, they get you out some kind of way.
So I would bring up the impoundment executive order and the birthrights executive order, but I genuinely think both of those are just virtue signaling. I don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to shut up on my own channel, Daniel. So that's very unrealistic to expect. But you can, if it makes you feel better to get it out, just
But can you admit there's a little bit of a reach there, Jeff, with those two executive orders that I just brought up? Trying to end birthright citizenship with an executive order and trying to impound money from Congress with an executive order.
well, the birthright one got thrown out, right, or
Oh
overturned.
yeah, it was obviously
Yeah,
unconstitutional,
yeah, I
like
thought it was too. That's
100%.
going to take a constitutional amendment.
Yeah, which is why it'll never happen, at least
Yeah,
not in this age. And then the same
and
thing with
and
the other
that
one as
that's
well.
another reason I'm not scared because Trump's going to try anything he can get away with, and then the system's going to come in and slap him down and limit what he's actually able to do, and we see that happening. I don't think he's going to be able to do anything very extreme, and
To a point, and I mean, I'd like to agree with you a lot on it, but it's a little bit different than his first term this time. Number one, he's not going the normal route and putting in kind of career officials like he did at first in his first term because he ended up firing them all, and it wasn't until the end of his term that he started putting in real kind of like people who were loyal to him. But he's doing that straight off the bat this time. The other is that he did not have this Supreme Court last time.
but
Um,
they've already ruled against him on things. So, like,
on
that's what I'm
some
saying.
things.
If you think you said that you weren't saying it's his lapdog, but that seems to be the implication is that he has a
No, I don't.
Supreme
No, I
Court now
don't think
that's
Trump
going to
is the
do
head
his
of
bidding,
anything
but
in the
they've
conservative
already gone
movement.
against him on issues.
Sure, I don't think of it like that though. I don't
No.
when we're talking about the hierarchy of conservative, if you're talking about the deep dark conspiracy of whatever's happening over on that side of the aisle, I don't think Trump's at the top of it. I just don't. I think, the same people who like fly Clarence Thomas around and basically make sure that all the Supreme Court justices have everything they ever want are the same kind of people who have business interests and stuff like that. It's not like some like evil conspiracy. It's just moneyed interest, I think, are the
Well, they're not
have
very good
always
at
run
it
everything.
because their puppets are all going against each other. They can't even get them all on the same page.
I I'm actually very surprised with Amy Coney Barrett, to tell you the truth, because she does seem way more independent than everybody else.
She's Cajun, you know that,
Yeah, yeah.
or of Cajun heritage, part
All
of
right. So
house.
what about? Because you made me put it off a while ago. What about the January 6th one? What about that pardon? Releasing all of them, blanket
I
pardon.
don't even remember it coming up. I made you put it out. I made you put it
Yeah.
off.
Well, you were like, hey, let's finish this one, and then we'll
Oh,
go back
okay.
to it. Yeah, you were like, I was like, okay.
All right. I don't know enough about that one. I keep seeing headlines, but I skip over those, honestly, because I don't care. I've moved on from the January 6th thing a long time ago.
I think that's a bad one, not just because it's pardoning people who committed crimes, but it's pardoning people who committed a political crime in the name of the person who was doing the pardoning. So it that has eerie echoes through history. So I think that one's a worrisome one. Also, I mean, whether or not you believe in all kinds of stuff at January 6th, like we have it all on video. We know that there were people beating police. We know that all these things happened.
Yeah, I
So
know what
a
we can
guy
see on
walking through
video. It's
the
again, it's the story that people fit all that into and tie together that the larger narrative about what we're seeing on video. So, like, if there was an
well, I
individual
mean,
on
you
a
can see
video
the
beating
act of
police, then
violence.
that
Yeah.
individual should have consequences. But people don't
Yes.
end with that one fact. They tie it together into a larger narrative, and everybody that looks at it takes away a different
Well,
story from it.
let's forget the narrative for a second. If we can, and I'll even cede, like, okay, I won't even complain about all the people who were like on the outskirts of the violence, or maybe even lesser violence, or just broke into the Capitol. Sure, pardon hits all those guys, but can we at least agree that the people who did do violence to cop, who did beat them with flagpoles, who did use tasers on them, and the ones who we know through them being convicted, like the Oath Keepers who did get convicted of seditious conspiracy, which means an attempt to overthrow the government. Can we at least agree that those people should not have been pardoned?
I'll give you the violence, the ones that were committing actual violence, yes, but I would apply the same things to any of the George Floyd rioters or Antifa or anybody else doing the same thing. Political violence, I would condemn all the way around.
Oh, sure, yeah. I wouldn't. I mean, anyone who was arrested for violence during the Black Lives Matter riots, I'd be like, nah, nah, keep them in prison. I don't think people should get free passes for stuff like that.
And yeah, Biden
Um,
pardoned a whole bunch of people, so
oh yeah, sure.
I think they're both setting bad precedents.
Hmm.
But precedent is for the future. That's for the down the road. It's nothing to worry about in my immediate life.
And while I can at the same time sit there and say, yeah, that's like super bad taste what Biden did. Um, I also don't think it's on the same level at all as pardoning people who did political violence in your name. I think that doing that act basically tells those people that you will get a get out of jail free card, and it advertises that fact. So for the next 4 years, we have that hanging over our heads that at any point, any of Trump's people could commit political violence, and he can just pardon them because he just did it. So there's precedent for that. So it's not like this scary thought in our head that we're just making up because it happened.
But are you thinking that there's going to be more violence? People are going to be more bold about their
I'm just
violence and not more cautious?
I think history has shown us that when people are uh, allowed to get away with political violence like that, that it encourages other people to do so as well.
Well, I guess we'll see. I'm not. I don't worry a lot about most the political violence I worry about the most, and it may be because I live up here in Washington State, is from the left. They have Antifa up here. They smash windows every year on May Day.
Well,
I,
yeah,
I was I
and that
watched the
sucks
Chaz
because
happen.
Look, one of my biggest critiques of the left, and there was a situation that happened down here that was more of a local personal situation, but one of my biggest critiques of the left, and I get shit from my fellow lefties all the time because I say this all the time, is that fucking lefties would rather go after the easy target than the one that's actually hurting them. Um, as evidenced by progressives constantly snipping at liberals and trying to fuck them over when we're not even the ones like who is doing anything to you. So like anytime that there's a time that like the left loses, the progressives are always like, the people toward the center fucked everything up. We just got to do this, and they come at them, and it's just like we're not even your ideological opposites. That's like my biggest critique, and I think that's evidenced by like places like where it's overwhelmingly liberal in like Seattle and stuff like that. You see leftist protests getting all violent and shit, and it's like there's not even people around there to fucking counter you. Like, what do you have to get all
Right.
violent about?
There's really not. It's more performative than anything, and
Yeah,
there's a certain
hate that.
toleration for it here, so they kind of can get away with it. The biggest, I think, the biggest target of their violence up here, if they have one, escape is cops. They absolutely hate cops. They hate the idea of police. They hate police stations, police precincts, all of that. So if it's directed at cops as authority figures and representatives of an imperialist capitalistic system. Because there's not a lot of like redneck Republicans around here to direct it at.
At least not in the cities where they are.
What happened down there? Was this recent?
It's just once again a matter of uh, let's just say, and I'm gonna try and say vague because it's still kind of an incident incurring, uh, but in a place of the arts, a left wing activist, something happens they don't like, and they would basically try to burn the place down through not literally,
Oh,
but figuratively through like media press, bad press, bad social media shit like that over an incident happening, even though it's a place where people on the left, it's a sanctuary, it's a safe space in a way, like it's a place where those people come to conglomerate and have ideas and stuff like that. But someone, because something impure to their ideology happened, they would try to tear it down and destroy it. And I was like, this is 100% why sometimes I just want to slap people on the left. It's because we always break our own shit, especially when we have bigger things to fight.
uh, yeah, they I've seen that too. They do like to tear down. Um, like any system they're not in control of, they see as a threat and want to dismantle or tear it down.
Yeah, I
And
kind of see that happening right now on the right too, though.
what are they trying to tear down?
What you just said, any system that they don't
Well,
control.
like what specifically? Because they have, like, they're in power now. They have all the systems.
Right. And now that
I
they've
did
got
see where
control,
he's thinking
they're,
about getting rid of the Department of Education.
yeah, and that's going to suck for a lot of people,
I don't know.
especially disabled kids.
I'd have to see.
Most of the Department of Education's funding goes out to disabled children programs, special
Well,
ed
that
programs.
doesn't mean that they're not gonna like still have some alternative to it, but I'd have to see what their proposal is. I'm
Yeah,
not
because I
necessarily.
really see Trump as a guy who is gonna.
Well, you're not willing to wait and see what the proposal is. You think Trump? It's going to
We'll
be
see.
Trump himself writing it, or it's going to be people more involved in
We'll
it?
see. Not much legislation got done in the first Trump term, so I don't have high hopes for legislation getting passed.
Well, I'm willing to wait and see. Because if there's a better alternative to the current system, I'm open to it.
Also, they just started. Elon Musk is dismantling U.S. AIDS, U.S. AIDS,
Yeah, I saw that. I
which has
saw
been
some
kind
of
of
the arguments
one of
for
our
and
main
against it. I
components
didn't even
of
know that department
soft
existed
power.
until recently. Oh, Beak! Wow, thanks. This makes it all worth it. Thank you. This will pay for my therapy. Thank you very much. Oh, let me look at the sticker. I have to go on YouTube to see it. Oh, it's what is that? Avocado? Thank you very much. We had an avocado on yesterday. Yeah, I've public school has been degenerating for decades. It's not even a Biden or Trump issue. Even under Bush with No Child Left Behind, and it wasn't even that great
No,
before in
public
my day.
education started deteriorating as soon as integration and segregation. We got rid of segregation, and that's one of the big problems. Like in the South, it's there's very specific echoes of that in the South because what happened when integration happened is all the rich people moved their kids out of public schools and into private schools, particularly Catholic schools down here, which is why you have
Is
such
that bad?
robust
Can you
Catholic
blame
school
them?
systems. Can I blame them for wanting their children just to be away from the black people coming
No,
into
for
public
wanting to
education?
get wanting the best education. I know back home, and you probably know this too. The Catholic schools supply some of the best education down there, the private schools.
Sure, but the reason
And
for
it's
that
not
is,
about not being around black people because black people go to them too. It's about that's where you
well,
get the
now
highest
they
quality
do.
education.
Now, yeah, now that after like 60 years of the public education system being torn down because of these facts, sure.
So before that, in the 60s, before desegregation, the public schools were giving as quality of an education as the private schools were and the Catholic schools. They were teaching them Latin and Greek and philosophy and all this other stuff. I doubt it.
I'm
I
not
think
sure
the
how
private
comparable.
schools have always had the resources to provide a better education than the public schools. So I don't know that it has
I'll
anything to do
bet
with
you the
race.
public opinion on public education was completely 180 to what it is right now. Bet you that.
Yeah, but not all because of race.
You don't think?
Not recently, especially not in my lifetime. I was part of the first generation of desegregated kids, and I promise you, I guarantee there were no issues with race. Nobody cared. We all were in the same classroom together. We all got along and learned and played together. No, it was the adult. If anybody was concerned with
No,
race, it
it's
was the
always, yes, it's
adults.
the
The
adults. Yes, of
kids
course.
themselves didn't know what the problem
Yeah,
even
I'm
was.
never said the kids. Who said this was about children's opinions? If children's opinions mattered, we would ask them to run for school boards and
And the
city councils, right?
teachers that we never got it from the teacher. Not one teacher ever said
I'm in a
anything
city
about
that
race.
busing for schools wrecked like relationships and all kinds of stuff like in the city as far as like racial relationships and stuff like that. Like there's all kinds of things that were happening from integration that people like would flee from and stuff like that. uh I mean, there are entire towns around a lot of cities in the South who their only purpose of existing was that they were white flight towns, and then they grew bigger and bigger.
Yeah, back
So like
then.
just I mean, everything has its echoes. I'm not saying anything is like it was back then exactly, but
But it you
I'm not saying
I
it's not
kept I
better.
said something like the public schools were have been degrading for a while, and
Oh,
then
we
you said
agree.
yeah, it goes all
I'm
the
just
way
saying,
back
yeah.
to segregation, and it's like you were trying to tie the current issues with education to race.
No, the current issues with education are that moneyed interests want private schools, charter schools, so that they can make a buck off of education and get all the fun education funding dollars that we normally put into public education. Like it's all a money thing now to me.
But what I see from education, and having been in it, the private schools have the resources that because that's where the money is flowing to them. To the money, okay, let me put it this way: if whatever money was flowing into the public schools was not being put to the use that the private schools seem to be able to put it to. So just marketplace competition, the private schools seem better at providing education than the public schools do, and I don't know it has because the public schools have the chance to
I
do the
don't
same
see it
thing
as a
with their
fair
money.
comparison though. Like the private schools
What
had
is stopping the public schools from providing the same quality of education?
an entire half of the country, an
No, I'm
entire
talking about what
ideological
about
system that
the
has
school itself, or the
systematically tried to
educator, or
destroy
how
them.
the services are delivered.
Wait, what's the difference in what?
Why are people turning to private schools and charter schools for education? Because the quality is higher. So what is stopping the public schools from delivering that level of quality?
Well, you said yourself, right? They have more money. More money's flowing there, right? Better paid teachers
No, I'm
are
saying
more
the
willing to do the
public
job.
schools, even with the money they do get, they are not putting it to the use of providing education at a level that would keep people from turning to other sources.
I mean, how can we possibly say that they have the amount of money that they need when we sit there and constantly hear stories of teachers having to buy their own
But
supplies
what would they do
and are
differently? Because
woefully
right now, like,
underpaid?
are you saying the teachers are bad because they can't afford better teachers?
No, not at all. I think we asked
Because
way
a
too
lot
much
of
of
the
teachers
problems
and
with
don't pay
public
them enough.
education are the students themselves that come to them to be educated. It's
Oh,
not even always the
absolutely.
teacher. So the
It's
school
not.
can
There's
only
not
do
one
so
just one
much with what they
problem.
have to work with.
Sure. And yet, some of the smartest kids in the country come out of public schools.
Yeah, I was one of them.
I was one of them as well.
But a lot of it I got, like most of my education I got on my own or through the gifted programs that Louisiana provided. It wasn't through the actual public school. I was bored. I learned basic, like at the lower grades, I learned my numbers and reading and spelling and that kind of stuff. But after that, I got most of my education on my own, extracurricularly. I learned very little from sitting in a public classroom. But I also didn't need to. The people that were, like most of the regular students, were getting science, they were getting math, history, English, all of that from the public school system. At the level they needed, I'd say to be a functioning citizen in our democracy. I just wasn't getting my educational needs met because they were higher than the ordinary person. So something like a private school where I could learn Latin and Greek and philosophy would have served me a lot better than the public school, and it would have kept me more stimulated and interested. But for the average ordinary person, the public school curriculum in my day and the quality of teachers that we had, and this is in small town Louisiana, I would say was sufficient. It was doing its job more or less. And that if education wasn't happening, it had more to do with the student than with the school. And I have watched that decline from that point. Mostly, I saw it when I was teaching, even before No Child Left Behind, but No Child Left Behind was when I really started to notice it. And so did most of the other teachers too, because they started all leaving the system. So I think it's a combination of competency, teachers that know how to teach, and
Yeah, well, we have
the
charter schools
students
popping up
that they're
all
trying
over
to
now.
teach, what the students themselves bring to you. If they don't show up with curiosity and a desire to learn, it doesn't matter how good of a teacher you are.
I was actually
Or
working
if
for
they
one of
don't
the.
see a value in education, or if they don't have clear reasons to motivate them to actually learn what you're trying to teach them. So it's a combination of that. But I know that when I was in the system, the students stayed the same. What changed was No Child Left Behind, and that changed the way that the teachers started to teach. And so I'd say at that point it became more of a teacher issue, and not necessarily the teachers themselves, but the expectations that were placed on the teachers. And it it limited the way they could use their teaching ability, the ones that had it. It started to constrain them and incentivize them to teach in a very specific way that wasn't very flexible and adaptable to the student's needs. So from that point, there were things on the teacher end that could have been done differently. And it didn't even involve money and funding. It just involved like pedagogy. And so part of our education, I think taking it back to the local level might be a good idea because it was that large scale centralization, that common core, where I
How is it
saw
taking it
things
back to the
start to
local level
go
though?
off.
Because like charter schools are basically corporations. They're businesses. They're not run locally.
I
Like
don't care
all the
about
ones
any
that
of
are.
that as long as the kids come out on the other end of it with an education. I don't care how it's
You just
delivered.
said
I
take it
just
back to
care
the
that it
local
gets
level.
delivered. And if the corporations are the ones able to do it best, then let them do it. If the private schools could do it better, let them do it. If public schools could somehow suddenly demonstrate that we can educate your kids, let them do it. Whoever can get the job done is the person I want doing the job. And right now, the public schools are not getting the job done. But neither are the universities or the academies. Kids are coming out of universities idiots. So I think education itself is, if there's any system that needs to be dismantled, burned to the ground, and rebuilt, it's the education system. It's just rotted from within all the way around everywhere I look. I don't know where people can turn. Most people I know that are getting educations nowadays are getting it outside of the established system. They're getting it online, from YouTube, from websites, from their own research. There's people that are watching YouTube videos that I can have more intelligent conversations with than people that are coming out of universities.
I don't know, I kind of worry about standards as far as like base knowledge or shifting of narratives or revision if we went to like an all private system. Because I mean, I guess you just heavily
I think
regulate it, but
education should still be under the influence of the public, but not necessarily at the federal level.
I mean, you have to, though, right? Like that's the thing about federalization is that you want to standardize things across your
No, you
country.
don't have to. We didn't do it. There was a time when we didn't. I think education should meet the needs of the community
So
that it
you would be fine
serves.
if, say, one specific state decided like we're not going to teach any of this science stuff because of Jesus, and their people basically.
No state's gonna do that.
No, I'm just trying to give an example. Would you be fine with having like a radically different approach to everyone else that basically harms the education of their citizens?
I don't think it would be that radically different. And you can still have basic standards without needing an entire Department of Education.
I agree with that. Like I said, I think the people who are going to be harmed if the Department of Education goes down mostly will be special needs children.
I mean, they already don't. They're already like the special education, and again, that differs by state more than probably mainstream education. The special education system already doesn't know how to serve special ed kids. So I don't know, like, what could get worse about it. It's already not doing its job. Mass scale education, special ed, kids with different educational needs than the norm or the mainstream require individualized education and an individualized approach. And schools are set up at a certain scale to deliver education kind of in a mass form. So I don't even know that they're the best system to try to provide special education. That's not what they're set up to do. They're set up to educate a large number of people in the basics.
Well, I think it's
With
more about they dole out funding, right? Like that's mostly what they do.
who?
The Department of Education.
Oh, I'm talking about the school systems itself. The people,
Oh,
like,
okay.
yeah, the fund. It doesn't matter the funding, whether they're doling out for mainstream or special education. When the funding gets to the people who are in charge of delivering the service, none of them know how to deliver the special education type of service. So it doesn't matter where the funding comes from because there's not enough people out there who know how to do the job in the first place. I think in that area of education, it's a lack of competency. It's a lack of it's the labor force is not there. The amount of people that know how to do the job, the amount of people who need the service exceeds the amount of people who are able to provide that service effectively. And I don't know what to do about that.
And so, like, all the stuff that the Department of Education does, I mean, a lot of it still has to be done, right? I mean, so you're not getting rid of the things that it does. So you're just putting this responsibility in other places. So I'm just not sure what it is that they're wanting to do because you still have to, do like federal loans and I mean, what happens to like all the federal scholarship funds and grants and all that stuff? Uh,
Yeah, that's why I'm willing to wait and see what their proposal is. I'm sure they're going to analyze the department and say what functions do we need to keep and how are we going to provide those if we take away the system and which functions are not necessary that can go away with it. So I'm willing to wait and see what they come up with. But as long as the states get their funding, I think the states have a, because Washington State educates differently than Louisiana and differently than Nevada because they have different populations. They serve different populations. I would like to see it maybe even at a more local level than that.
So what if they just altogether remove special needs grants, and now families of those children have to like go what to the private sector and pay for it all now?
They're not getting served now. I'm not in favor of them removing the grants, but the grants are not really buying what they're paying for in the first. Like even now, they're not.
But it's the
Whatever
difference
these
between
grants
having
are being
access to
put to
that
use
education in the
for.
public system that you're already paying for versus you having to go to a private school and actually pay out the
But
amount for
the
special
private school's
needs
not going to be
stuff.
able to do it any better either. That's what I'm saying. Like there's
But it's not
I
a matter of
don't know
better, it's
what
a
if
matter
you're
of the
talking about
chunk
specifically special education. I
chunk
don't
of
know
your
what the
income
solution
from a
is
poor
because there's
person.
not
That's
enough
what I'm talking
providers,
about.
regardless of where it comes from.
Yeah, I'm not talking so much about what the actual education needs of the child is. I'm talking about the chunk of income that the special needs parents, the kids' parents, would have to dole out for a private system versus the public system for them.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think it matters right now because whatever they're doling out and to whoever they're doling it out to, they're getting very little in return for that.
I mean,
So I don't know what the
it's
answer. Like I
public
would tell
school. Like,
parents, don't waste your money on somebody that's not going to be able to educate your kid. But then I don't know what the alternative to that is. Like right now, I think people are doing the best that they can with these kids. The parents are doing the best they can. The school's doing the best they can. But nobody is really doing great at it. And so I don't know where the
I'll just
money's
say
going
I
or what
hope
it's
it
being
doesn't
used
go that
for.
way. I would
And I
hope
don't
that
know how
there's a
money would create a skill set that's just not there. I don't think that special education is something you could just train it. There's not a template you can give people and say, here, if you follow this recipe, you will be able to educate these kids. That's not how that type of education works.
well, I think it would be a matter of since all those programs would be shutting down in the public schools, then all of those educators would be moving over to private institutions. So it's not a matter of having to train new people. It's just a matter of the parents would have had access to a public school where they could send their special needs kid without incurring an insane cost,
I,
and
I
now they
don't
have
think
to
they're
incur that
shutting
cost.
down special ed programs. That's what you're worried about? That's
Well,
not
I
the
mean,
idea I got.
it's a matter of if you take out the Department of Education and that is the primary funder for special needs education in public schools, those particular parents are people that would have to incur a way larger amount of cost if their kids went to a all private system.
So you're worried that the funding's going to be eliminated, not just shifted to some other department, that they're just going to eliminate the
That
funding with
specifically, that's one
I
of the
don't
ones.
know. I didn't get that. I don't know why they
I
think
don't
that.
think special needs funding is like a specifically mandated by law aspect of what the department does. So that's why I think people have said that that's one of the things that may not get shifted over to another department.
Oh, I don't think there's the political will for that. I think people would still want it to continue.
I mean, I hope so. I mean,
Like I think if you tried to
it's
cut
just
off,
these are the kind of
if you
questions we have to
tried to
ask when
eliminate
you're.
special education, there would be an outcry on all sides.
Yeah, yeah, there would, but that
That's why
hasn't
I don't
stopped
see it
anybody
as a
from all the things they're
realistic
doing right
goal.
now. Like the outcry is sometimes what stops it.
See, yeah, I agree, Dobez. In a perfect world, this is probably the ideal. But even then, I don't know where they would spend that money that would get them what they're looking for. Special education is more of a talent than a skill, and there's not a lot of people that possess that particular talent. There's way more kids that need it than people able to with the talent to provide that service. And so it's a supply demand issue. And even if you give parents the money for it, there's not a lot of supply that they could get it from. And that's a situation where I think the wealthy are going to have the advantage, the ones that can take advantage of the little bit of talent that is out there. My biggest hope maybe is that as these kids become adults themselves, some of them will be motivated to turn around and teach that population, since it's a population they come from and are familiar with. So maybe the talent will be found as we nurture that population itself.
I do think that something major needs to change in methodology as far as teaching.
Yeah, I do
Yeah,
too.
kids
Um,
kids retain more about the video games they played than they do the information they get at school. I mean,
maybe that's the thing. Just educate through video games or online. Like shift it to digital education and gamify it.
there's been serious talks about that. I've heard from people
Like
who are talking about
maybe the
changing
model that
education.
you even need a classroom with a teacher in it is outdated. Zat, oh my God, that sounds delicious.
Bison chili.
I love bison. I haven't had bison chili. Well, I'm jealous. Good for you.
The question is why so. I don't know if that's the question.
I think in this modern world, I think we're just going to see more and more of that. People are more attuned to diversity and divergent needs, and so I think that that population is just going to increase. People,
Well,
because
it's also
people
a
are not
matter of
there.
like,
The traditional education system is a one size fits all system, and there's going to be, I think, more and more kids that we discover that one size is just not going to work for.
oh man, you were being way more good faith on that question than I was going to be. Because I thought it was a bad faith question. I thought it was trying to imply some kind of like they're making people fucked up kind of implication.
Oh, that's why the numbers. No, I think it's. I saw something today about why there's so many more autistic people, etc. And I think it's just identification.
Right. Recognition, identification, normalization
But
of.
there is like there is this phenomena of autistic. When two autistic people mate, their kids have a higher rate of autism. So like we could be producing more autistic people through heritability. But I mean, autistic people create the modern world is created by autistic people. You're like they're not going anywhere. It's probably better if they increase because they're the ones that know how to operate the world. They're giving us our computers and our technology. Hey, Bart, good afternoon to you too. So I think we just have to accept our spurgs as part of modern life because they're the ones creating it and helping everyone else to adapt to it.
Jack, I know you keep trying to make a
Neurotypicals
point in
had
the
your
chat. If
chance.
you keep going, you'll get there, buddy. Keep trying to make that point.
Well, when the supply is human talent, you can't, there's no way to increase it. I don't know how you increase. I wish I did. I wish I could teach other people how to teach these kids, but they either have the knack for it or they don't. Because you have to have the type of brain that can like notice patterns in the moment and individualize. You can't be pre-taught or pre-trained. You have to be able to use observation and recognition and adjust to unpredictability. And I don't know how you teach that. That's gained through experience. But you have to have you have to have a certain there's a certain way of thinking in the first place that you have to have developed at an early age.
Because as a society, the way we even think about, talk about teachers is in a way backwards. I think teachers should be a kind of revered part of our society. They should be treated way better. They put up with a whole lot. They're basically babysitters for your fucked up children while trying to teach them things and do 100 other things. I work with teachers all the time, and to see the things that they do, the time that they sacrifice, and sometimes the even money that they pour out so their kids can have things. Um, it just always sucks to see it, like how badly they're paid and how few resources they get.
Yeah, I agree. It is a reflection on the value we place on education as a society. And I mean, I don't expect that to change under Trump, but it would be nice if at some point teachers got, well, I don't want to say what they deserve from society, because if it's not a society that values that in the first place, then they don't really deserve it.
Right. Yeah, I would say I would hope that we start to value that position more. I think it's the only thing that can change it. I
I
think
think when we get out competed, I was part of the Sputnik generation, because after Russia sent Sputnik out in space, there was a huge scramble in the United States to fund, to identify talent and nurture like really smart kids and to compete. Like, how do we compete? Russia just outcompeted us. So how do we get back in the game? And they started funding. They started people that valued education and wanted to learn. They were throwing all kind of money at those people. They were looking for that, and they were trying to nurture it. And that's what a lot of the gifted programs got started. So I think when we get out competed enough, we're gonna maybe suddenly decide that it's worth investing in and valuing. But the America's always kind of had this anti-intellectual strain in it.
yeah, some reason a lot of
It's
people
part of that rebelliousness.
just makes a lot of people feel inferior as far as like when anyone tries to be intellectual about anything.
Yeah, the nerds. Nerds have always had a rough time here. I don't know how it is in Europe or Japan, or I mean the Asian countries. Do you, where like especially the Asian countries where intellectual, like intelligence is high status there. It's more revered and valued and sought. And so the non-intelligent Asian people, how do they cope with not not meeting that expectation? Because here it's just kind of built into our culture. If you're not
Y-
intelligent, there's a whole culture
Right. I was about to
for
say
you.
something like that. There is a there's a kind of view on intelligence, and you can this is reflected in our media, I think, where people are just like you're either born a genius or you're normal, right? Like there's just a ton of TV shows on right now where it's like about people who were born geniuses, or every television show needs at least one genius nerd, just stuff like that. And it always seems that there's the American mindset is you're either born a genius. It's never that you can work to make yourself smarter. That's I never see that idea in popular media that often that you can make yourself uh, and intelligent. Which is funny because my best friend in the world went from being an absolute jock, uh, playing college football, uh, to getting his PhD in multiple subjects, and now teaches at a university. So like I've literally seen a person close up go from one mentality to a completely opposite end and upped his game and became that intelligent person. So I know it's possible for anyone,
From just applying himself.
just applying yourself.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know a few people, like the really bright people that were never intellectuals until adult life, well into adult life. Some of them never even read a book. And like growing up, it seemed to me, watching the kids around me and siblings and just people in my age group, that most kids weren't interested. Like they didn't like to read. They read the minimum they had to. They didn't like to do math. They were not motivated. It was not just like I wasn't interested in sports. They were not interested in academic activities. So it was intrinsic to the kids themselves, and that the ones that were interested in it did acquire intelligence, but the ones that were not, none of them were going to go out of their way to make themselves intelligent, even if that message was out there, which it more or less was in places.
See,
But
I've always
they knew their own limitations and their own interests and their own selves, and so they themselves did not pursue. They pursued the bare minimum of education that was expected of them.
my analogy for intelligence has always been the same. Uh, Intelligence can either be processor or hard drive, and processor is going to be what you're born with, right? You can be born with an insanely powerful mind that can process information like no one else, and most of the time, I'm not sure if that can change that aspect of it. But we've all got the hard drive. We can all fill our heads with knowledge. We can all upgrade ourselves in that kind of way.
Do you think that the drive to do that is innate, or to seek it? Because like even if we can, even if we all have a hard drive, a lot of people don't seem motivated to fill it. It's like work to them. They don't
That
want to
is
put in the effort to fill it.
that's a great question. Like what creates natural curiosity in people? Because I'm one of those people. I'm exceedingly curious. Like I have going on like reading tangent. Well, even when I was young, checking out books from the library. I would just like pick a subject. My mom would be like, well, "What is it this time?" And like, "Well, today it's whales. I have 10 books on whales." Like just
Yeah, I was like that too. It's something I've always known, and I like probably in their cribs. You have some babies that lay in their cradle and study the room and look all around and look at their mobile and analyze. And you probably have a lot of babies that just kind of lay there and wait for a human to come and interact with them. And their minds may not. So I wonder how early that stuff starts and if it is innate, or if you can stimulate it in those that don't have it. Like if you're a baby that just laid in your crib passively, when you reach 10 or 15 years old, or is something going to be able to stimulate you into suddenly being curious about the world around you?
it is true that it's like some people seem to just kind of like, and not to be super judgy, but some people do seem to just kind of act as drones in a way. Like they're there just for like simple things, simple pleasures, work, family, TV, food, sleep. Um, I know plenty of people like this who have absolutely no interest in learning anything after they got out of school, which they felt was put upon them.
Yeah.
And
Or even
I
things
can't
like
imagine that.
movies or TV shows. If it's too deep or complex or weird, or some people like
Yeah,
won't even
yeah.
watch a movie that has subtitles. Like they'll watch a certain level of movie that's easy to digest, but they won't. What to me is, it's not really a challenge, but movies that I have to put a little more effort into, for them that's like a stopping point. They just are not willing to put in. They're willing to put in a certain amount of effort as long as it's easy and digestible. But if you have to work to watch a movie or a TV show, it 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 takes more energy from them than they're willing to give. And for me, it just adds to the
And that
experience.
might crack the code right there, though, Jeff. Maybe we have to make education so bright, happy, colorful, and entertaining that even the people who can't handle it are like, they can't help but learn something because they can't help but pay attention.
Like have it in that window where it's consumable. Like wasn't that Sesame Street and the stuff like that, like the theory behind childhood
Yeah, I
programming
think so.
TV
Yeah.
TV. I used to watch all that stuff, and it
And
seemed
it,
to me a lot of it was silly, but it
I
seemed
would love to see
aimed
a study
at a
about,
very broad attention span.
I would love to see a long-term study about people learning certain subjects through video games and see how well they retain the information because I have a feeling it would be surprising.
Yeah, there's got to be some window that the average person can learn in at their maximum through some medium that can like like function in and speak to that window. And I'm sure there are people that have studied this and do study this, but whatever they're coming up with, it's if they, are they have they optimized it yet, or are there more that we can do? I don't know, because to me, curiosity really is the foundation, and I just always had it. I've never had to jumpstart it.
Yeah, same. I guess that's why I'm so curious as to why people don't have curiosity.
Yeah, me too. And but and there's certain shows that I do find boring and uninteresting, and I'm not willing to put the effort into. And so if the movies that I like are like that to those people, I understand that mindset. I get into it now and then. Something has to cross a certain threshold before I'm motivated to invest in it. I think my threshold is just wider. It doesn't take as much. But if something really does not interest me, it's really hard for me to force myself to be interested or to put
Yeah.
in effort. And I don't know what controls what we're interested in or not. That just seems random and very individualized.
So that's what we have to do. We have to get people creating individualized, like themed education modules of different.
Yeah, like
You
start
a
with what
video
they're
gamer? Here's a
interested in.
gamer thing. Here's you a sports guy. Here's your math in sports plays, and
Yeah, yeah. What are you interested in? And start there. Because
personalize the education.
everybody, like every human, probably has something that interests them more, some kind of hobby or
With
something that
AI
they're
getting
drawn to
better,
more than
we could do
others. And
that
if you
soon.
start there, and then you can use that as a foundation and layer in all the other stuff on top of it according to their ability. And then something like an AI or would be it'd
Well,
be better
if
position like an because an AI can assess each individual
well,
person and then add in the content that they need as the person goes, and it can machine learn that person's pattern.
yeah, and as we've seen with most technologies, kids who are like basically born into using it will figure out ways to use it better than even the people who invented it sometimes. So if you start to have kids at an early age start to talk to things and be like, no, tell it to me like this, give it in this kind of analogy, or um, yeah, that personalization could be the key.
Yeah, maybe that is the solution, like AI education. Start the kid in front of the computer, and of course it would be like this humanized interface, and the AI would get to know the kid and get to know their interest and their learning level, and then it would gradually add in. So you tell it what this is what all kids need to be educated in by this point. And then you put each kid in front of the AI, and the AI would evaluate and assess each kid, and then gradually introduce the material in the way that it determines the kid's going to best able to absorb it.
There you go, Jeff. We just solved the education problem in
We
America.
did. Now we need funding to help us get this, and talent. People know how to build this because it's not me. But I can do the human version of it. Well, maybe I can do the human version of it that the AI can model itself on. Like I could sit down with an actual kid and use my human brain to do that same type of stuff. And if you have enough humans doing that, the AI can learn off of that. I think you're right, though. I think we did solve the future of education. And I don't even know that we would need a national department for that. That seems like it's very easy to install at the local level.
I have to say, even though I am pretty doom and gloom about privatizing education, it would be interesting if we got to a point where there was actual competition in education to where these privatized institutions were literally competing over whose kids come out best, and that there was a push to innovate. So even I could hope for maybe something like that. And there is a world where it could work, I think. Um,
So much of that is cultural too. Like there's some cultures that value that. Like education is more higher status than others. Some cultures don't care. Some cultures it can actually be a liability. If you're too educated, you stand out from your culture, and you're too different. And like I think the middle class, upper class, the waspy cultures, those all value education more than like maybe the inner city culture or even Cajun culture. That's not they're kind of
Well,
anti-intellectual.
we've had a rough road with education though, being kept out of it so long, and then having our language taken away, and being forced to learn English, and
Yeah,
being
yeah.
told we were dumb in schools because most of us didn't know English. And
We didn't trust educate because in our culture it was the priest that was the literate class and the educated class, and the priest was like the authority figure that you weren't sure you could ever trust or not, and so it was associated with being too intellectual was associated with being too priest. A lot of the Cajun in the Cajun language, a lot of the insults and some of the phrases that are used to express negativity center around words for priest and the priesthood and things that priests do. So like the way people talk about politicians here and corrupt and the elite in the Cajun culture is the priest. And so if you're too educated, you get associated with that class of people. But the culture as a whole is kind of resistant to that. And it takes you out of you're not a common man at that point. You're not one of the folk. And I know I taught a lot of Hispanic kids, Mexican immigrants, a lot of kids of immigrants too in Vegas, and that culture is very anti. It's like when the kids, school is daycare, and when the kids come home, the parents put them to work, or they go out and do social activities with their family, and the if the kids try to do homework or study or ask their parents questions or stuff, that's all frowned upon or resisted against in that culture. And so the only place the kids really have to even practice education and get exposed to it is in the school because their home life does not support it. And that was one of the big challenges I had to work against was a culture that didn't value education outside of school. And how do I carry on what's happening in the classroom into their home life? Because they did not have a culture that supported it. A lot of their parents didn't even speak English. They didn't even understand what the kids were learning in the first place or how to support it.
oh yeah, I'm the second person in my entire Cajun family's history to go to college.
Oh, yeah, that's an
For,
achievement.
yeah, the first was my aunt when I was a kid.
I was a nerd growing up, and that definitely put me at odds with my family, my immediate family. Nerds was like the insult or the stigma. You didn't want to be seen as a nerd, and people went out of their way to even if they were intelligent or could make good grades, they didn't brag about it. They didn't talk about it. They downplayed it. You wanted to try to act like you fit in with everybody else, and one way to stand out was to be intelligent, to use big words,
Yeah, I
to
think I think
talk
everybody
about.
around around our age, Jeff, had that moment somewhere in the late '90s, early 2000s, or mid 2000s, where they were like, "Oh man, the jocks are all nerds now. Like the
Oh,
nerds
like the
won the war.
nerds.
The nerds won the war.
You
Like
feel. I remember
even
telling
even
my
even
sister
the
that growing
jocks
up
have
because
to
she
use
was very
computers now."
anti-nerd, and I told her I said, one day the nerds are going to be ruling the world,
And we did.
and we did. And I wasn't part of. Somehow I missed. I wasn't in that nerd crowd. They were the tech nerds though, not the book nerds or the art nerds. And I wasn't interested in tech. I could have been one of those nerds. But again, I can't force myself to be interested in something I'm not.
Oh,
And
same.
even though
Yeah,
I could probably learn technology and computers and coding and all that stuff, my brain's just not interested in it. So I don't have the motivation for it.
I couldn't. I tried. I was a computer science major for a whole year.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I ended up leaving in the middle of a test
Oh,
I was just like, I just got to this point with this. I wasn't a test. It was I was working on a program, and it was like it wasn't even that long. It was only like a 500 line code, and I'd been pawing over it forever looking for the thing that wouldn't let it compile. And I was just sitting there in the lab, and I finally found it after like looking for it for 4 hours, and it was a semicolon that was supposed to be a comma or a reverse or something like that. And I just had this moment where I swear to you, I saw the future. And I knew at that moment, if I continued on my current timeline in my current path, I would end up with a machine gun in an office building mowing people down. And so I was like, nope, got to get out of this. I
oh wow. Yeah,
was
I
like, I can
completely
only,
relate. That would
yeah, I
drive
was
if I
like,
had if I had to do that for a living, I'd probably go mentally ill. That would make me.
imagine having to look over like a 5,000 line code for days and days and then just finding out you just got a semicolon wrong. I would, yeah, I would go into a rage.
No, I don't. That's not fulfilling to me.
Of course, they didn't have all the tools they have now to like double check shit, and it was all everything was old school back then. But yeah, that was
Yeah,
when I was
that's
still in my slide toward the
there's
arts.
we need nerd diversity. It's not just computer nerds.
Well, the
In
computer
fact,
nerds are about to get their asses kicked though
oh, by
by
AI.
themselves. Yeah, by themselves. They
That's where
put
we're going to have
themselves
the
out of a
advantage
job.
because the AI is not going to be able to do the creative, artistic stuff as well as humans can. I don't think.
Yes, I've been telling people
I
this.
think it's going to be able to displace some of the techie nerds,
So
but
it's going to take
not
over
our type.
digital versions of art, I think, because it already has. Like anyone who's doing graphic design, motion design, probably even some music. But when AI completely takes over, all of our traditional forms of art, live music, paintings, anything that is actually made by human hands, will be more important. Will go up in value, and the experiences will be more important because now you're going to be swimming through a world where everything's made with AI. Every little jingle for a commercial, half the voices you don't even know if are real. Who even knows if the people on your social media feed are real? But all of the art that you can go and see with your eyes and touch with your hands and hear with your ears, yeah, that'll be worth way more, I think. So I feel like there's going to be a big resurgence of traditional art in the coming years.
Yeah, and it's humans like the AI can randomly innovate art, like study patterns and figure out what is likely to be the next thing, but they can't innovate for for humans like a human can. Humans can tap into that geist and create art that speaks directly to other humans. It'd be interesting I don't want to
Well, it's
rule
also
anything out,
like,
but my prediction is that humans are going to be able to do that a lot better. They're
well,
going to be able
also
to.
like as someone who went to art school, um, art is not about just making an image or making a song. Art is intimately joined with the human expression that creates that, and that link. Um, art is the mirror to our souls. It is how we express things. It's in some cases, I would know even for me, sometimes art is therapy. Sometimes it's a way of getting to know yourself, what you're thinking in your subconscious mind. Like it's so many things, and at the heart of that is human. It's so human, and when you take that out of it, sure, it might look even better. It might be even cooler, but it just doesn't have that aspect that makes art art in my mind.
I don't think we're getting replaced by the AI. I put it this way: I'm up to the challenge. Bring it on, AI. But you're hearing it now. You're gonna lose.
Whether it be Terminator timeline or Matrix timeline, we're gonna beat you.
Oh my God, Lou, did you enjoy that? That sounds like torture. Like if somebody wanted to punish me, like they made Dobez stare at the wall, this is what they can make me do as a punishment. I know it can. I don't even use text to talk on my phone because it never gets my accent right. It always I got frustrated. I have to keep going in and correcting the words because it doesn't decode me. That's what, I'm not worried about AI or the algorithm. It's because it's not that good, even at what it's supposed to be able to do now. Well, I have to pee very badly. Do you want to call it a day, or do you want to talk about Trump for a little while I step away?
Actually, I kind of have to go as well.
Okay, well, let's. I think we've had a pretty full episode.
Yeah, good talk. Good talk.
Yeah, I think so. I don't
Hope I
think
didn't
there's as
sound too
reason to be
irrational to you.
scared as it seems. I'm glad to talk to somebody from that side and kind of sort through what's going on in their heads. But I think
Well,
that's where a lot of this is happening.
I mean, I do think people are freaking out a little much sometimes. I think people need to, if they knew their civics a little better, they would know that executive orders aren't as powerful as laws. Um, so until people start passing laws and the Supreme Court saying those laws are okay, there's really not like apocalyptic things happening. So,
Yeah, I think that's
but
you're right.
I still find a lot of it worrisome, just for like to me the behavior of what it seems to imply. But we'll see how things go.
We'll see how things go.
Good talk as always, Jeff.
You too. You
Take
too.
care.
You as well. And we got the educational problem solved. The future of
Solved.
education starts here. It's
Put it
happening.
in an envelope, send it to Elon Musk, and be like, "We did this for you. There
I
you go, buddy."
applied. I sent him my resume. They were recruiting when he. I said, "Hey, I'm the. If you need someone to help with mental health or special education, I'm your guy." Never heard anything. The closing prayer. We'll do a little satanic blessing.
All right, take care, Jeff.
Take care. This is for all the dummies out there that are still that choose to remain dumb and have no curiosity. No, see, that's gonna make me hateful. You wait for me to pee? I don't have anything to show you. I could play some more of that Trump video. Actually, I don't really have. We really did have a full episode today. Effigy and I talked about a lot. It started with politics and what has people so worried and concerned, and it moved into education and like what's wrong with modern education and how do we fix it? And I think we came up with some good solutions. In fact, somebody should clip it and send it to the right people, whoever they are. Because I have not given up on kids. I think each generation of kids are perfectly educable. I think they need the right approaches. The very first thing you have to do is get to know who you're educating, get to know your audience, get to know, be clear about your goals. What are you trying to achieve through education in the first place? What are you trying to educate them in? And get to know the people that you're trying to educate. Don't make assumptions about them. Find out how they learn and figure out what you want to teach them, and you have to adapt it to their natural bent, how they learn naturally. You don't try to force it. It's better if you can work with what's there already naturally and organically than trying to force or engineer something. You're gonna achieve much better results and longer lasting results that way. Hello, Crucible. Welcome back and thank you. And I don't think there's anything else to do here today. We've accomplished a lot. So I guess I'll see you tomorrow. Let's see. Yeah, tomorrow Joe and I will be out talking about something for our Nexus episode. And then I'm not playing that video game anymore. So if you see me again today, it'll be for one of the fireside chat vertical things. I'm thinking of with the satanic cat. Hail Satan. Thank you. I'll keep that in mind. All right, everybody. Take care. Great seeing you all. And I'll be out tomorrow with Joe at the usual time. 4 p.m. Eastern, 1 p.m. Pacific. See you then. Hail St. Kitty.